Hello and welcome to this November subscription tasting video where I am going to taste the coffees we are sending out to all our coffee subscribers around the globe actually. We have about 1,200 eager subscribers to our coffee that get coffee once a month from us here in Oslo. And normally I will pick out the best coffees that we have at any given time and then send them out to our subscribers. So you can subscribe to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 bags. It's a recurring subscription. You don't have to really think about it. You can pause it, you can stop it whenever you like, and so on. So if you like special coffees, this is the place to come, because we do actually buy a lot of coffees every year. Last time I counted, we had over 60 different lots in our storage. And some of these lots are very, very small. Can be down to 150 kilos maybe. So those are the coffees we like to send out to our subscribers, because it's a fun thing to do and we can taste it together. And I really like those coffees. Today we are going to talk about a topic that has been popular at least a couple of years ago. I guess it's still relevant, but we're going to talk about seasonality, because coffee, as you know, is a fruit that's harvested normally once a year on each farm around the world. So for instance, in Colombia, they have 2 harvests. That means they have a main harvest and then they have a smaller harvest. And when it is, it's a little different from farm to farm and area to area. But for instance, in Tamaná, we would have the main harvest in June, July, around there. And then we have the Mitaca, which is the small harvest, in November, December. In Honduras, where we're going to today, they normally harvest once a year. And it's normally at the beginning of the year, so January, February, March, but some of the farms like Nacimiento, we're going to get coffee from that farm today. He actually harvests from January until July, so it's a very, very long harvest season. And that's just because the farm is on a steep hill and it starts in the lower part in January, February, March, and then he normally finishes at the top towards June, July. So normally the best coffees come from the later harvest because it's higher altitude. Today we are tasting 2 coffees from this farm called Nacimiento. Honduras Caceres Dios is the farmer, together with his wife Fanny, and they produce some wonderful Pacas coffee and also Bourbon, which is probably my favorite from that farm. And also recently we planted some SL28 together with them that is very, very fruity. But today we're going to taste the Pacas, which can be spectacular on this farm, and it can also taste, you know, sweet, nice, but not so expressive. We're going to start with a Pacas variety that was harvested, believe it or not, last year, in 2019. And the reason for this is we have that coffee still. Because of COVID, of course, sales have gone down a little bit, so sales were a little slower. But this coffee actually tastes really amazing. And the second coffee we're going to taste is the same variety, but harvested in 2020. So the first coffee is harvested in at the kind of mid to end of the season, and the coffee from this season is harvested in February. Let's taste together. Now the coffee from 2019, the Pacas, is very, very fruity. Has a lot of these kind of stone fruit flavors and a very sort of ripe mango-like acidity. You know, when you eat very, very ripe mangoes, without it being like overripe, you get this kind of very delicious acidity that kind of fills the mouth a lot. Also some red berries here, definitely. It's got a nice acidity actually. You know, when you eat like red currants and these kind of berries like that. Very refreshing. Now, a lot of people would not think of buying a coffee on the shelf that says harvested in 2019, because we're already at the end of 2020. But because we have worked with Honduras for a long time and improved how he dries the coffee, how he stores the coffee. Now we're drying the coffee in shade over a longer time, so it's not too hot. He's storing the coffee in a cool storage at his farm actually, in grain pro bags, which is a kind of plastic liner inside a nylon bag. And that makes the shelf life of the coffee much longer. So before, you know, the coffee would normally arrive Norway around August, and then we would have to hurry to sell it before it started to fade. And by fading, I mean the green coffee is actually oxidizing slowly over time, and at the end it just tastes very woody. For me, this coffee doesn't have any woodiness at all. It's actually vacuum packed as well before we shipped it to Norway. And here in Norway, it's stored in very cool conditions. So this coffee has kind of aged, but in a good way. Like the fruit is a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more open, as we say. It's not kind of closed, and it's a little bit more expressive now and transparent, I think. Now the second coffee, which is quite fresh. We recently got this into our warehouse. I have to compare a little bit. Wow, big difference. Second coffee, same variety, just a year fresher, so to say. Has a little bit of this greenness, and a green in a positive way. Like the green coffee is actually very fresh. So with fresh green coffee, you tend to get this kind of almost like fresh cut grass, this kind of fresh green smells, and it's actually quite pleasant. You know, when you say green flavors in coffee, normally it's quite negative. It can be like cucumber or peasy, or if the coffee was underdeveloped in roast. But this, for me, has this kind of green, fresh flavor. You can also get some fruit, but it's much, much more subtle, and it's not as open and kind of transparent as the first coffee. I hope you really enjoy tasting this side by side. I thought it was a fun exercise to do, because not a lot of people get the chance to actually taste two harvests side by side, where both of the coffees are still tasting quite fresh. Normally, you know, the 2019 coffee would be very woody by now and taste awful. It would normally taste, you know, like cardboard. It loses its sweetness and so on. But this 2019 coffee for me is actually, among the two, the better one at the moment. Fruit, fruit, fruit. The good thing about the fresh harvest is the sweetness and mouthfeel is so kind of thick and smooth and clean. Really like drinking those coffees as well. Now the third coffee is a little fun coffee. It's actually from another farm in Honduras, from the Caballero family in south of Honduras. So Nacimiento is north in Honduras, in the mountain Santa Barbara. And the coffee from the Caballeros is from Marcala, which is closer to the El Salvadoran border in the south. And this coffee actually we planted together with Moises a couple of years ago. It's a Batian variety. It's a hybrid developed in Kenya. And it's got a quite interesting flavor profile. A lot of you subscribers got the Java variety last month, and this has a little bit of that kind of tea-like umami mouthfeel, but a little bit more floral flavors and some subtle fruit. So with florals, it's not the typical kind of jasmine florals that you get in geishas. It's more of a kind of violet, a bit more perfumey, but it's quite subtle actually. It's not this kind of in-your-face florality. It's got a big body, this coffee. And very, very lingering sweetness. Wow. It's very, very intense. Not the typical kind of Kenya flavor. You know, Kenyan coffees tend to be very fruity, like blackcurrant or winey or blackberries or something like that. This is, of course, grown in Honduras, so it's got this kind of chocolatey undertone all the time, like dark chocolate. But you know, when you have this kind of very, very high quality dark chocolate that has this kind of almost fermented fruit flavors, it's got a little bit of that and florality. This coffee was harvested in February in 2020 by Moises and Marisabel. And I think this coffee actually has a lot of potential. I've been cupping it now 3 years in a row. And it's the second year where we actually got to buy a little bit of volume. Volume meaning 150 kilos this year. Whereas we would buy 4,000 kilos of their Catuai, for instance. So, you know, there's a little difference in the lot size here. But we just have enough to send out to all our subscribers. So if you're subscribing to 3 bags, you will get the Batian from the Caballeros. If you subscribe to 2 bags, you will get Nacimiento Pacas from 2020. And 1 bag subscribers will get the Nacimiento Pacas from 2019. And of course, if you subscribe to 3 bags, you will get all of this. And if you subscribe to 4, 5, or 6 bags, you will just get 2 bags of each. Get it? Yes. Tell me if, what coffee you liked if you taste all of this. I highly recommend tasting them side by side so that you can actually compare the different harvest seasons and also different variety. You know, people tend to be very obsessed about seasonality, but I can taste coffees harvested, 3 months ago that has already faded and that taste woody. And for me, that's not what seasonality should be about. For me, it's more important that the green coffee actually tastes fresh. You know, we have some friends in the US, George Howell, they actually freeze their green coffee in order to keep the freshness for a much longer time. So I've tasted coffee from them that is 3, 4, or 5 years old, the green coffee I mean, and it's still tasting really vibrant and fresh. So seasonality, you have to be a little bit more kind of understanding of what's happening with the green coffee before we get very strict on, I don't drink coffee that's harvested a year ago, I drink coffee that's tasting fresh all the time. That's my opinion. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. And also, if you want to subscribe to our coffee, visit our website. There's probably some links below as well. And hope to see you next month, which is December. We might have some Christmas coffees. And this year went by fast. Well, see you next time. Bye-bye.